Well, speaking of the Black Butte copper mine and the Black Butte project, joining us right now is Nancy Schlepp with Sandfire Resources. Nancy, great to chat with you as always.
Good morning, Aaron. How are you?
Well, I'm doing great. I have to say my reaction to this news is cautiously optimistic. I say that in the sense that it's good news that environmental regulators have approved the Black Butte Copper Project. It'll bring a lot of jobs to your neck of the woods. I mean, you're from there. Your family has farmed, ranched in the area. I think you're a former county commissioner out there too, right?
I am a former county commissioner. My family's been ranching in Marr County since the 1890s.
Yeah,
and we came here as a mining family in Castletown, mining silver. So
really,
so everything comes full circle.
Wow. Well, first off, what's your reaction just to the news from yesterday that the DEQ basically have approved plans for the project?
We are thrilled. This is something I've personally been working on for over 7 years, and then you have Jerry Zig, who is the one who discovered the project, grew up in Marr County as well, and he discovered it back in the 80s. So we've been working on this project a long time. The actual permit went into the state of Montana in December of 2015, and I have to say that the regulators have been very professional working on this. I think they've come out with a good plan that both can work for the environment and be a great boon for our economy, and I am thrilled we're at to this point.
Yeah, I know the folks in White Sulphur Springs are very thrilled by this news as well because, switching tracks just a little bit here, I know in northwest Montana, where they've got a couple of mines being proposed in northwest Montana near Libby and Troy, if those two mines were brought online, $300 million every year in revenue and income and jobs and things like that, just from those two mines in northwest Montana alone. Talk about the economic impact this will have in a place like White Sulphur Springs, which helps everybody. Livingston, that helps the whole area. Well,
the economic impact is going to be incredible. It's something we've been planning for. It's something that we've helped create the Marr County Stewardship Council for, which will be a community oversight committee to make sure that we're planning for the day the mine closes, the day we open, so that our community really does benefit long term from this. As far as actual numbers go, our payroll alone will be over $12 million a year. We'll have about 250 full-time employees. And granted, we still have 2 years of construction, and as your last caller said, we are fully expecting a lawsuit, so we'll see if that timeline is affected or not. Overall, this project economically is a huge boon for the state of Montana. Roughly speaking, when copper prices settle after COVID-19, this is about a $2 billion project, and about $1 billion of those dollars over the lifetime of the mine stays right here in Montana.
Wow.
That's the whole reason I took this job. I really want to see good natural resource development that protects the environment in the state of Montana, and I think we've accomplished that.
Well, and we're going to need that money now more than ever. We all understand that. I mean, if the private sector is struggling this badly today, imagine how much hurt the public sector is going to be in a year from today. And in fact, the public sector is already struggling too, because some cities are already looking to furlough some municipal employees as well. I know from the environmental standpoint, you guys have been praised for not only meeting the standards, but for exceeding the standards and for technology integration that's just unheard of.
Absolutely. One of my favorite things to do is sometimes I'm lucky enough to get to go and talk to school children, and I was talking to a class of 8th graders in Kalispell last winter, and we were talking about how even telephones have changed in the last 40 years, because we're the first new copper mine to be permitted in 40 years. And think back to our telephones, and I remember as a kid being on a party line with all of our neighbors, and now I have a cell phone that I can look up information worldwide in seconds. I think we've all experienced that. And that's the same kind of technology that now is going into mining. We have a lot of great technology that we can use to protect the environment. And a few of the things that we're doing that really will make the difference is we're going to be adding cement to all the tailings. The tailings is the ground-up rock that's left after you mine. And we will be adding cement to that, and half of that will go back underground just where it was mined out of, and will set up hard. And the other half, because once you grind something up that fine, it doubles in size, so we can't put it all back underground, but the other half will go in a double-line facility with cement and then be capped at the end and will become a pasture again. So there won't be any tailings left on surface, which is fairly new. And then we will also be using reverse osmosis to treat any water that then gets put back directly into the groundwater system when we're done with it. So those two things are huge. The other thing we're really proud of is that this is a mine that women and men can work in equally. Nobody here is going to have to lift really heavy objects, or probably more than 15 pounds. It's fairly automated. It'll be something that everyone can do, and we look forward to putting a lot of Montanans to work.
So even those of us in the bad back club that had some hard landings with parachutes or put too much rucksack weight on our backs over the years could even handle it. That's good to hear. You mentioned that you fully expect the radical environmental groups to do what they always do. I mean, standard, business as usual for them is trying to shut down business, and even in the middle of this coronavirus crisis, they've been up to business as usual, which is trying to shut down business here in Montana across the board. The reason I'm cautiously optimistic about this is because is this news yesterday good news? Yes, but the environmentalists will file suit. And one thing I get very leery about, given the current administration in Helena, is that they'll allow certain things to become law, or they'll give the green light to certain things. But then, because they know that then it'll just go to the liberal court system, and it'll go to the liberal Montana Supreme Court, and then they'll be the blank check for whatever the activist group of the day is. But you never know. Maybe the Montana Supreme Court would actually, if this goes through the courts, the courts would actually say, hey, wait a minute, let's look at the facts. Let's look at the need for these types of funds here in Montana all around.
Absolutely. We've been planning for a lawsuit since the first day. I feel we have a great legal team that looks at every single one of our documents before we would put it into the state of Montana, that's been helping us formulate a plan every step of the way, and really making sure that our permit is bulletproof so that we can withstand a court proceeding. And unfortunately, in Montana and in the United States, that's become the normal for business. Is the next step with any great natural resource project is a lawsuit. It's very unfortunate, but we're ready. We met with our lawyers this week for hours, and we are optimistic that we can fight successfully anything they bring.
Well, I'm glad you're ready, because I know the folks in White Sulphur Springs and across Montana are ready for some high-wage jobs. They're ready for some revenue. And, hey, and when it comes to tourism, look, as we saw in eastern Montana when we were rocking the Bakken, we saw record numbers of tourism in eastern Montana because, you know what? Montanans had more money in their pockets, so Montanans got to enjoy our backyards a little bit more as well. And it wasn't just the playground for everybody else. We got to play in our own backyard. So Nancy Schlepp, Sandfire Resources, the Black Butte Copper Project. Great to have you on the show. Thanks so much for calling in.
Thank you for having me.